Hey, it's Desiree. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you see something you like, please like, subscribe, and share. And let's get into it. So, the next couple videos are probably going to be about Jesus. And they're going to be about the I am statements. I just felt like it was something that needed to be talked about. So that's what the next few videos are going to be about, and I think it's going to be really awesome because the way that God opened this one up for me blew my mind. So let's get into it. The scripture that this video is based off of is John 10, 7 through 10. And it says, "Then said Jesus unto them again, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. The thief cometh not, but to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they may have life, and they may have life more abundantly." So, the I am statement that I'm talking about today is, I am the door. So in Christianity you hear, or in church, or whatever you want to say, you hear a lot of the times Christ is the shepherd and his believers are the sheep. And I've just, I've heard it my whole life, and I never really thought about it in depth, to be honest. I was just like, yeah, okay, the sheep follow the shepherd, it makes sense. And you always hear that like sheep are dumb and all this stuff. So these are the few things I've heard, but I never really actually thought into it. And so as I was reading this, I started asking questions and breaking things apart, and like it just exploded. And so the first question I asked was, don't judge me, I don't know anything about shepherding, okay? But I was like, what door is a sheep going through anyway? Sheep. Do you say sheep for one? Or there's a lamb. Well, sheep. What door does a sheep go through? And I didn't know. I'm not gonna lie. I looked on Google, and I found out on Google that is a sheepfold door. And I didn't even know what a sheepfold is. So what I'll do is I'll put the picture of a sheepfold in. And what you guys will be able to see is that there is this area with like this, like almost like a pen, like I think of like a baby pen, but it's not that. But there's like this big area where the sheep, hang out, and then they're surrounded by like a gate thing, and then there's one door. There's only one way in and one way out. And so this was the door that Jesus was referring to, the sheepfold door. And so then I looked, actually, like I found a website, and I might butcher the name, but it looks like it's pronounced Ligonier.org, and the article was The Door to the Sheepfold. And in this article, it just like explained everything. It opened everything up. So I'm going to read an excerpt from it. It says, "In ancient Palestine, Jewish shepherds brought their flocks back to the sheepfold for protection after a day of grazing. Predators such as wolves and other animals sought to eat the sheep, and they were particularly active at night. But they could not penetrate the sheepfold, which was a walled structure topped with briars, to keep out those who wanted to destroy the sheep. It had but one entrance, its gate, and many shepherds would share the same sheepfold. Thus, sheep might get separated from their flocks in the sheepfold, but in the morning, when the shepherd called, everything got sorted out, for every sheep knew the voice of its shepherd." That was mind-blowing. I had no idea that sheep legit knew or know their shepherd's voice, and that I always thought they were dumb, but turns out they're smart enough to I love animals, and my cats are super smart. I don't know why I thought they were dumb, but they know their shepherd's voice to the point where they're like, oh, that's not mine. Oh, that one's mine. And then they just kind of go their separate ways. That open the scriptures up referring to Jesus as the shepherd and us as the sheep, and something you hear often is that his sheep know his voice. Well, that makes sense now, because sheep really do know their shepherd's voice. And not that I didn't trust it, it's just, it's crazy. It just opened up. So that was cool. Now let's get into verse 8. Verse 8 says, "All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them." So when I thought, I'm like, who are they talking about? Couldn't be the prophets that were before Jesus. Who are the thieves and robbers? And I started thinking, like, when I looked some stuff up too, and the consensus that I came up with is that the thieves and robbers are the priests of, like, the Pharisees and the Sadducees and things like that. Like, they looked at themselves as kind of like gods instead of looking at God as like the Almighty. And they were essentially misleading the people, and that they were putting themselves up on a pedestal, taking the glory from God, calling other people sinners when they were sinners themselves, like teaching the law but not from the right heart posture. And it just was completely misleading and leading people astray, and their hearts were very far from God, even though they thought they were perfect. And I feel like they were thieves and robbers because they were taking people's chances away of actually getting to know God. And people just weren't getting saved that way. People's hearts weren't changing. When you think about the law does not save you. That was the whole thing, first of all. Second of all, if you're teaching the law and you're teaching it out of a bad heart posture, you're really not going to get saved, and it's going to mislead you completely. And so, coupled with just thinking that they were just God themselves, they were just so arrogant that they missed the mark completely. Let's get into Romans 7 through 10. And Paul kind of explains it. And it says, "What shall we say then? Is the law sinful? Certainly not. Nevertheless, I would not have known what sin was had it not been for the law. For I would not have known what coveting really was if the law had not said, 'You shall not covet.' But sin, seizing the opportunity afforded by the commandment, produced me every kind of coveting. For apart from the law, sin was dead. Once I was alive apart from the law. But when the commandment came, sin sprang to life and I died. I found that the very commandment that was intended to bring me life actually brought death." So, this is essentially how I looked at it. Before the law and before sin, the law wasn't needed, right? Because if there was no sin, then there was no need for a law. So, before the law was necessary, before sin, death was not attached to us. But after sin, the people needed the law because the law points out the sin in us. Otherwise, we're going to be walking around all high and mighty, thinking we're this, that, and the other, or, we're bomb.com, or whatever you want to say. And we won't know what's going on with us. So God's like, no, now that you sin, you have to be accountable for that. But death was attached to that because it's impossible to keep the law, because the law was just there to show us our sinful nature. It's in our nature. So death had to attach to us because that's the penalty for sin. And then the cool thing about that, though, is Christ came, he died for us, and he detached death from us. He detached sin. So this explains why people were not able to be saved by the law and by the priests at those times, especially like the Pharisees and Sadducees, is because the law is just there to show us our sin. It cannot separate us from sin. It cannot separate us from death. Only Christ can. And this is why he came and created the new covenant with us and with the entire world if they accept him. So let's get into verse 9. Verse 9 says, I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. So when I was thinking about that, I'm like, okay, go in and out. Well, the sheep go in and out of the sheepfold, and in the sheepfold they're protected, and God is always protecting us. And I kind of think of that as like the dark times and the hard times, and the times in life where we feel like we're alone, but low-key God is right there saving us the whole time and protecting us. And then when they go out during the day to graze the fields and eat and this, that, and the other. The shepherd is there watching them, also protecting them. And they can grow and be fruitful and eat and just live their best life out there. And essentially, God does the same thing with us, right? So, like I said before, in those dark times and those times we feel like we're alone, we are in the sheepfold and He's there protecting us without us even knowing. And then when we go out, this is when we're flourishing. This is when we're growing as human beings. This is where, we might be getting financially blessed, spiritually blessed, living peacefully. Like, everything could be going on around you on earth, but you just have this innate sense of peace. That's when you're out of the sheepfold and you're just flourishing and growing and you're in the pasture. And that's kind of what I think about when I think about pasture. Like, pasture is a life of peace, spiritual abundance, and physical abundance. That's what it's like to live in the pasture with God. So now let's look at verse 10. Verse 10 says, the thief cometh not, but for to steal and to kill and destroy. I am come that they may have life, and they might have it more abundantly. So again, we just talked about the priests were operating out of a sinful heart posture, which is of the enemy and not of Christ. And they were stealing the glory that belonged to God. They were attaching the law to people without teaching them the correct heart posture, which was spiritually killing and destroying them and misleading them. And really, those are the verses that I was going to talk about. So I'm going to reread the verse, and this time I'm going to give the Desiree definition with it while we read. So John 10:7-10 says, Then said Jesus unto them again, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. The door of the sheepfold, which gives protection and leads to abundance. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, the priests who had bad heart postures and were misleading the people. But these sheep did not hear them, because their heart couldn't be changed from people who are misinterpreting and arrogant. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, given eternal life, because Jesus died on the cross for us, and shall go in and out and find pasture, a life of peace and increase. The thief cometh not, but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they may have life, and that they may have it more abundantly. Yeah, that's essentially what the verse says. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any comments, any questions, or you need a prayer request or whatever, please comment down below, and then like and share. There will be more of these, and I just pray that you guys, if you're new to this, you guys join the small family. We're trying to get bigger, but right now we're very small, and that's okay. I'm just trying to be obedient, but again, like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next time.